I'm your host, Matt Zimmer. As you can see, we've changed our wallpaper. We've got a channel takeover happening today with Mindshift. Man, already starting out on a bang. But welcome. I'm going to bring on our guest here in a second to help us talk about the topic at hand. But I'm super excited to have this opportunity. I got connected to Mindshift via a connection on LinkedIn in my past that came forward to the present and connected us, and really excited to hear about what Mindshift is doing, how they work, all sorts of things, how they can impact your business, but also just how kind of the thought process on what brought Mindshift together can impact your business. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in Reid, Madden, and we're going to talk about Mindshift. Reid, how's it going?
It's going quite well today, Matt. And you're doing good yourself?
Can't complain. The rain's over, I guess, for a little while. So,
And of course, that means it's snowing outside in Minnesota right now.
Yeah, I forget. I'm in Southern California.
I'm outside of Minneapolis.
In the snowy north. Well, I'm from Detroit originally, so I can commiserate, but I also I don't choose to live there, I guess. So it's all good. Cool. Well, thanks for coming on. I'm excited to have a conversation with you.
I'm outside of Minneapolis.
In the snowy north. Well, I'm from Detroit originally. Sorry, my stream was playing back to me. Anyway, I'm excited to have this conversation, learn a little bit more about Mindshift. I thought maybe to kick things off, you guys have a pretty good, you got a pretty great video on the Mindshift website. So I thought maybe I could play that, and then we can roll into just talking a little bit more about Mindshift and kind of your guys' philosophy. Does that sound all right?
Let's roll it.
Cool. Here we go.
Hire in this competitive world is difficult enough, but imagine bringing someone like me on board, someone on the autism spectrum. It's true that, for me, a routine trip to the grocery store can be fraught with blinding fluorescent lights and a stomach-churning spill on aisle 6. But it's also true that with my super ability to notice every little thing, I can tell the butcher that there's something fishy about the label on his yellowfin tuna. It's true that there's work out there that is so repetitive, so mind-numbing, that it would drive most people bonkers. But it's also true that with my incredible attention to detail, I actually thrive on finding the one needle in the haystack full of 2,453,676,282 pieces of straw. It's true that 85% of people like me in the United States can't find meaningful work because of our differences. But it's also true that I'd like nothing more than to roll up my sleeves and put some of those differences to good use. It's true that it can cost taxpayers about $6 million to take care of someone like me over the course of my lifetime. But it's also true that by supporting Mindshift, a business that places and supports talent like me, you can help put a big dent in that.
All right. Can I?
Sorry. There we go. So I think I did a pretty good job of, high level explaining what Mindshift is, but maybe just kind of in your words, you can describe to me kind of what Mindshift is and kind of what its goals are.
So Mindshift is a unique staffing and recruitment firm. As that clip implies, we exclusively work with autistic individuals. We are what we do is we contact businesses who need talent, and they need talent that has they need talent with the sort of skills and experience that autistic people can really provide. Then what we do is we have a pipeline of talent we work in 4 different markets so far: Fargo, North Dakota, the Twin Cities in Minnesota, Milwaukee in Wisconsin, and Denver, Colorado. And what we do is we have this pipeline, and we we have our own sort of interview process.
Mm-hmm.
Although that's not quite, it's not technically an interview because there are there's a few different steps that we do that gets around some of the issues that autistic people can have with the typical application and then interview process. So
you're doing it's workforce placement for autistic people, and there's MindShift's developed kind of a process for handling the placement, doing the vetting, that type of stuff, right?
And it's not just that placement. We think of it more as trying to facilitate a better process for our clients.
Yeah.
And we have this process where our clients, and just so we're kind of clear on the terminology, our clients are referring to the autistic individuals we work with, whereas our partners are the companies that we contract with.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we have a process where our candidates, so these clients, take our process to develop their self-awareness. It also helps us get a better understanding of them, what their skills really are, where and how they work best, what are the limits that you might have, because we all have them. And once we have that, we can look at positions that our business partners have that would match them the best.
Okay.
Now, and the other thing I should mention is literally everyone at MindShift has to take this process that we do for our clients, just for ourselves as part of our training.
Sure.
And I have honestly found it a fantastic experience. And it's something that I genuinely think more companies just should do in general, something like this, because it's asking not only, it's asking when do you work best? When is your energy level the highest, but also how do you solve a problem? How do you learn? Do you have to?
Yeah, I mean, those are just kind of normal questions for everybody. Those seem pretty basic. It would be important to know that for kind of almost any hire, regardless of capability or ability or anything.
Well, that's the thing with a lot of what we do, and honestly, a lot of disability justice in general.
Yeah,
this can help everyone, and it's kind of stunning how little people seem to make that connection.
Yeah,
there's a kind of metaphor that gets used a lot where it's snowing outside and you got to shovel a way into the door. So you can shovel the stairs and then shovel the ramp, or you can shovel the ramp and everyone else can go up there instead.
Yeah. So, we're talking, the title of this thing is Hiring for Autism as a Strategic Advantage. And I think when we first came on, you were, I think what you said, something around the lines of kind of providing that matchmaking service of providing the right people and the right skills with kind of the right job or whatever. I mean, it's a matchmaking service. Are there, so we're talking about autism and the skills that maybe autistic people, I guess, either maybe have naturally or gravitate towards. I'm wondering is there what types of jobs are we talking about? Is it all over the place? Is it in a specific area? When what type of it, if I'm a company that's hey, this sounds interesting, what types of things, should I be thinking about, hey, these
There's
types of people, maybe really strong fits for, this type of work.
so the first
Did
thing
that
I should
make
probably
sense?
the first thing I should probably say right now is, if you have met one autistic person, you have met one autistic person. There is no such thing as a
Not a monolith.
universal autism experience.
Yeah.
So there are certain traits that pop up routinely. Often, a sort of hyper focus can be one of them. Strong attention to detail can be one of them. But so can sensory issues. Like in the video, they mentioned just the harsh fluorescent lights, and I know a lot of people. A lot of autistic people can hear the faint little buzzing they make, and that drives them up the wall. But by that same token, studies have shown that autistic employees can be up to, I think it was 130% more productive than their neurotypical counterparts. Neurotypical in this case meaning essentially that they are not autistic themselves.
So the job placement is it's varied. It's not saying if you have math problems or something like that, that's the work that autistic people do. It's quite varied.
Yes. I was recently giving tours at one of our partners in the Twin Cities is Boston Scientific, and I was giving tours in some of their more manufacturing facilities, where that sort of routine work is really good for our clients, because they gravitate towards doing that same thing over and over again because it's a comforting routine. And I also know that there's a marketing firm in Hopkins, Minnesota that we've been working with, and one of their employees is now one of our clients. He has that super intense focus, and already him and that firm are just going fantastic together.
Cool.
So,
sorry, go ahead. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I got nothing. So,
all right. I've got another question here. I will just mention if people are watching this and you have questions that you want to ask, either Reid individually or specifically about Mindshift, feel free to throw them in whatever platform you're watching this, and we will collect questions and comments and be able to ask them. So feel free to just type your stuff in and work on monitoring everything. So happy to answer or entertain questions from the audience if I'm doing a poor job of asking you what you want to hear. So I'm interested. What was your what's kind of your personal story? Like what?
Well,
in some respect, I'm interested in how you got involved in Mindshift, but also before that, what was your relationship with kind of the business world, and then what did that transition into Mindshift look like, and how has your life kind of changed from that transition? So maybe there's a 3-part question in there a little bit, if that made sense.
Let's start with how I got to this place first. So I feel like this has been kind of burying the lead for a bit here, but I am actually autistic myself. I was diagnosed with what was then called Asperger's syndrome at the age of 3. And so I've basically known this my whole life. I've gone through special education, K through 12, all the way through. But I also graduated not only from high school. I graduated from Hamlin University in 2017, and once I graduated with my double major in English and political science, I was kind of still looking for that, first kind of stable professional job. Now, I did do work in between all of this. I interned at the Minnesota State Capitol for the office of then Governor Mark Dayton for a bit. I worked with a firm as a direct service professional for other disabled people. I worked at a movie theater, selling tickets, making popcorn, all of that. In 2020, I was actually part of the initial cohort of interns for this initiative that United Health Group put together, where they were specifically seeking out disabled individuals to work for them in various capacities. And I was in the department that became marketing and sales enablement. Translation, I made sure that the sales team had the documents they needed in the form they needed when they needed them, which involved copy editing, involved making sure they were placed in the internal United Health Group databases correctly, that all those tags were in place properly, other such related tasks. I was unfortunately laid off from that position around August of 2022, but I went through the initial cohort in 2020 and became a full-time employee for basically the year of 2021 up through my eventual layoff. Then while I was doing, blasting applications out, I heard about Mindshift from a friend of a friend, and basically I actually applied to Mindshift to be like a specialist with them. Like, I didn't actually apply to Mindshift to work directly. I just went to apply through their program.
Yeah.
And then the people here basically saw that resume and my job profile, and they basically decided we should get this guy to work for us, because if we're going to talk about hiring for autism, we should hire some autistic people. And I must give both United Health Group and Mindshift a huge amount of credit for that. That's critical, that they're actually putting, real money where they say they want to go. And I am all for that. I am all for companies actually putting real money on the table to advance this sort of diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda.
So I'm interested. So you've worked. I mean, you worked for what'd you say, the governor's office? Was that right?
The office of the governor of Minnesota.
Right.
Yes.
So
I was in the communications department.
That's obviously very impressive. So you've worked at real businesses, right? And then when I say that, I don't mean to be demeaning or anything like that. I'm saying there's real world experience, that you can kind of back up some of these claims. I guess I'm kind of wondering what's, now working at Mindshift, let's say a conscious organization that's, Mindshift is conscious of kind of the condition or the experience or whatever. And I'm interested, what's the difference in what you experience on kind of a work basis of all right, at these other places that you were at that maybe weren't conscious of it. Like what is the difference in how the work you're given, how you're treated, the work environment? Like, can you point to just like, what is it? Are there differences? Is it internal? Like, what do you experience?
So one thing that I think has been really interesting has been that my kind of, step into the professional world did coincide with the COVID-19 pandemic. It's still going on, of course. And one of the best parts to come out of COVID was that people kind of are starting to question, why we were working in certain capacities when we know we can do them other ways now. Like the work from home explosion that had to happen in COVID's wake was an absolute godsend for a ton of people, but disabled people in particular, because they don't have to do either a long arduous commute or be in an environment that is not as conducive to their working abilities as others.
Yeah.
And so I feel like my experience will therefore be kind of atypical from what may have happened pre-COVID. But in my experience at United Health Group and Mindshift, I've had a ton of support available when I needed it. At United Health Group, I would often, I sometimes told my supervisor, listen, like I need to take this day for me. I've been a bit overwhelmed recently for stuff both in and outside of work. I need just this day to kind of work through that, decompress a little bit, and that was never an issue. That was really great to see. At Mindshift, I can work from home.
Mm-hmm.
I try to make the effort to come into the office like I am currently at least 2 days a week, but I do have the option to get the work done in an environment that can be more conducive for me.
Yeah.
I also other things.
I think it's interesting that you say that. I think it's interesting that you identify like kind of the work from home has been, a godsend for disabled people. I have a disabled brother who's in a wheelchair, and I think he's made the same comment that, just the routine of getting up, getting ready, and getting to the job for a fully abled person is a snap. It's just what you do, and it's nothing. And for him, like it's right, and like nobody, you're not really credited with that. It's just like, well, that's what you got to do to get to the office, and it's like, well, yeah, but the putting the office as what you have to do is like putting a hurdle in place. It's not recognized as a hurdle. It's just that's the way it is. So I didn't honestly I didn't have that thought in my head. Like how could I? I don't experience that. So it was interesting working with him and getting those insights in real time, because I didn't it's not a world that I experienced necessarily. And until you have somebody tell you it, you can't really know that stuff. So I find that interesting that you kind of say the same thing.
I think that that's something that I should probably stress, that if you didn't know about this stuff already, because it didn't you weren't inherently affected by it, either as a parent or a friend or a caretaker or a disabled person yourself, then you didn't have to think about it, so you didn't.
Yeah.
Like, that's not because you were a bad person or anything. It's because you just didn't have to think about it, and so you didn't. And a lot of the way we've been structuring our workplaces are like that, where if you don't have to think about these issues, then it's best not to. The problem comes when you have even minor disruptions, to say nothing of something like COVID, and now you need to actively think about, how are we actually structuring all of this? How are we making our work environments conducive and accessible? How are we making it easier for the people who work for us to do this work to the best that they can?
Mm-hmm.
Because it seemed that there was an assumption that people can just do the work.
Yeah.
Which it sounds bizarre when you say it out loud, but that's what we were thinking.
I'm thinking through, like, just your kind of individual skill sets and what you like to do. What do you actually do for Mindshift? What does your day-to-day look like? What are the types of things, if I'm a business, and what are the types of things that you actually do for the organization? How are you utilized internally?
So I mentioned how I was giving tours at Boston Scientific recently. When I say that, I was touring with candidates to work there, and I was going there kind of helping show our clients, the work environment that they'd be in. I was with someone at Boston Scientific who was helping give this tour, showing them, this is where you'll be working. This is what you might be doing on any given day. These are the safety precautions you'd have to take, because we were in manufacturing.
Yeah.
This is a bit what a regular day in the life is. And
got it. So you're in that. You've got the clients, but you're also meeting with and I apologize, what do you call the companies?
Business partners.
So you've got the clients and the partners, and you're kind of playing middleman in some respect, or whatever. You're helping facilitate the introduction and those types of things.
Right. I'm also helping train workplaces to help with autism in the workplace in general.
Gotcha.
So
I popped up this kind of Joy's adding some color and context, so I figured I'd throw that comment up.
For context, Joy Kiefer is my supervisor and the leader here at Mindshift in Minneapolis.
Yeah, she's given us some data and statistics and refining maybe what we're saying a little bit. So appreciate that, Joy.
And I'm also interacting with our clients directly, basically checking in with them. If they have an issue come up during their work, I'm one of the people that they contact.
Yeah.
I say one of them because I have another partner who covers other parts of Minneapolis.
I find this so. I mean, this is like, again, the titles that we're talking about is hiring for autism as a strategic advantage, and I'm like, what's interesting to me, like when we talk about this, like what I hear you talking about is like the way I internalize what you're doing. To me, it's like you're doing sales and customer service. Like that's a normal job, hiring a normal like the autism, I hear like it's not even a factor in some respect. It's just an interesting, you just sound like a qualified, you sound like a qualified employee doing, important work. And I think that's really interesting to me about the organization, and almost like this process that you're talking about of like nailing down like what is your skill set, like that sounds really important, and that matchmaking process just seems like so powerful of like, look, the really important thing at the end of the day is like matching the right person with the right work, and maybe having like the right management or something like that like is interested in making sure that the people that work there are like doing meaningful work for the company, but maybe also meaningful work for themselves. And like that seems like really what the important thing is here. I don't know, that's just what comes to mind as I'm kind of talking to you.
It is important work. And I also think of my work less as inclusion work and more as integration work. And I make that distinction because the metaphor I go back to is like growing up, my mom would say, okay, you have to include your little brother when you're going out to the park to play games or whatever. So I can have him there. That's including him. I could bring him to the park. Yeah, I included him. I didn't actually play with him at all. I didn't play catch with him. I didn't invite him onto the field or anything. But I included him. So instead of that sort of inclusion, which really does tokenize the whole process, which goes against the whole principle which you're supposed to be working with, if you ask me. I think of it more as integration, where you're integrating disability into your workplace. And I mean, this is what I do, but you can apply similar principles to integrating people of color, integrating trans people, integrating others, queer people into your workplace. This is the overall goal should be, you're not just, my coworker who happens to be, he's not just my, disabled coworker. He's my friend who I work with, who also is disabled, like in that order.
Yeah.
It's really trying to create a more conscious workplace, but in that process, you also make your company better as a result. Like, not only is like diversity just a good thing to do on principle, like it's very attractive to younger employees. It's also attractive to a lot of customers these days, and because it shows that you're not the soulless corporate machine or what have you, or you're not just paying lip service to these ideas of diversity. No, you're actually doing that work. You're actually improving things for everyone. Like that's the biggest, I think, sell on all of this. It's a win-win-win. Like the business wins on those merits. Mindshift obviously gets a win because we're doing business. Our clients win because we're not only employing people, and therefore they're getting the paycheck, they're getting benefits, they're getting the routine that comes along with that. They're also getting the socialization part that comes in to going to work, talking with people at the office, or going to the movies after work, or other social engagements like that, which can be a hugely big thing for people like me. And it also means that the community as a whole wins, because it's actively creating community. It's creating that space of it's creating a space where we can be together, where we can work and learn and play together. Like it sounds, kind of, you can say it sounds like hippy dippy nonsense. You can say that.
Yeah.
But doesn't that sound great on its own though? Like why are you trying to dismiss something that's just good?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would expect, I would think companies would see this as a cost burden, and not everybody, right? I mean, I'm just trying to think through like what would be a reason, why a company would say, not for me. My gut tells me it's, they see it as a cost burden. They see it as, I'm gonna need to do some special training or make special permission, and because of that, like there's this additional cost to it. I think you see that in a lot of areas, not just around here, but something like just hiring in general. Companies don't want to invest in like education. Like they want to, like what their like natural place is like, I want to hire, and the day you come in this organization, you better be ready to make an impact. And it's like, dude, like that's not realistic at all. Like, a company is a unique entity. Even if I'm an expert in the the area, if I'm going to like a whatever biomed company, and I've worked for another biomed company, like that one biomed company is going to be different than the other. So regardless, day one, I'm not going to hit the ground running anyways. But I feel like companies have that mentality that like, you got to make the impact day one, and they don't want to educate, they don't want to train, they don't want to invest, in their employees. They just, employees are a means to an end rather than a real asset within an organization. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to finish my point.
I was cutting you off, frankly. But the reality of business is you spend money to make money. And
yeah.
And you if you're going to invest in anything, invest in the people who actually make you that money. It seems, again, a lot of this seems, very obvious when you say it out loud.
Yeah.
A lot of it sounds like, why are you not doing this already? And yeah, why aren't they doing this already?
Sure.
But that's kind of the weird reality in which we live, and my biggest reason why you hire autistic people is because they're qualified for this position, and they're just right for the job.
Sure.
If you're worried about the cost of accommodating and training, first off, most accommodations that people like me need are surprisingly inexpensive, if not outright free. It's not just like I said, working from home. That was already a pretty big accommodation for anyone. But if I need, sort of like, kind of noise canceling headphones, that's a pittance for companies, especially big companies.
Yeah. Well, especially if you're cutting out the cost of the office too. It's like,
yeah, or
a portion of the cost of the office,
and the cost of training. Granted, this one is a bit more than a nice pair of noise canceling headphones, but not only is the training, it doesn't have to be tremendously laborious and expensive and really thought out, because to be honest, a lot of the training is simply trying to get back in touch with your humanity. If anything, a lot of, diversity, equity, and inclusion training it's not really training as much as it is having you unlearn a lot of the habits and thought patterns that you've grown accustomed to that are, that keep you from really embracing this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I know how I say that, it makes it sound like, some evil mastermind is corrupting your soul with and yeah, tie the maiden to the train tracks next, why don't you? It's no, it's not that. It's just it's when you value the number going up as opposed to the person who is working for you. Naturally, you're going to start valuing whatever can make the number go up as opposed to the person right next to you.
Yeah.
And I saw the comment come in. It's just taking that first step. Yes, take that first step.
Yeah.
And take the next one.
I mean, the reality is
again,
most of these businesses have autistic people hired. Like, I don't know.
Guaranteed.
I know you know this percentage more. I'm sure you know this more than I do. But like, it's not like 0.001% people have autism. Like,
I can guarantee you there are vastly more autistic people working at companies than they may realize.
Right. So I mean, they're already doing it. It's just bringing it out in the open and maybe just wrapping a little bit of a program around it to like put people in the right position and empower them as best you can. So like, I don't think we're talking about anything crazy here, because
right.
Yeah, the reality is they're already at the people of all sorts of different abilities are at an organization, and it's more about like just bringing it out into the open.
Well, the thing about saying bringing it out in the open, it's really, really nerve-wracking to disclose that for so many people. And
you're talking about the partners or the
we're talking about clients right now.
Clients,
we're talking about well, not just our clients, but just in general. It's really nerve-wracking to disclose to employers and other people in your life,
because you're worried about the backlash or whatever, the repercussions or something, right?
Because there's
still the unknown,
I
guess.
There's still a lot of stigma attached to disability in our society.
Sure.
There's still a lot of social stigma attached. There's still a lot of internalized pressures too, where you don't want to seem like you're trying to weigh everyone else down with this thing that you have no control over. And I get that. I really sympathize with that. It's something that I honestly still kind of struggle with.
Sure.
Even though I've been fairly open about my autism for most of my life, it's still something that can feel weird to just kind of say to someone.
Yeah.
Especially because it's not something that you just, open with.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Sure. That it's I was just kind of thinking about like the place then that kind of Mindshift plays. Mindshift is partnering with partnering and kind of vetting organizations that are friendly, let's say, to to individuals with autism. So maybe Mindshift helps provide that, in some respect, like a safe avenue or a safe pathway where, you know, you don't have to just self-identify in an open organization that you have no idea how it's going to be perceived. Maybe you kind of think about, does that make sense? That Mindshift kind of provides maybe a little bit of an easier entry pathway kind of into that kind of disclosure environment.
Well, the other thing about disclosure is that it doesn't have to be like you get in front of the entire, workplace and, say, yeah, I'm autistic, or I just learned this, the other day. And, it really can be just, that sort of one-to-one conversation with, the guy who's working next door to you or your supervisor. And then, then you just kind of work together to figure out, what happens next from there.
Yeah.
And Joy's comment here that when a current employee who thinks, they could be autistic or are autistic and they're unsure of disclosing, when they see us, our clients, working at that company, it's so much easier because there's much less unknown there.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's pretty clear that they're succeeding, they're autistic, and it makes it so much easier to, kind of join in that. Well,
yeah.
Join in, maybe a poor choice of phrasing, but
cool. I was gonna see. I'd like to. I've got some more Mindshift kind of questions, but I was wondering if maybe we could venture off into maybe an area that's hopefully doesn't get me in trouble. Like I get a little bit nervous about saying something dumb. So if I say something dumb, just tell me I'm saying something dumb. But okay. I thought yeah, go ahead.
First off, if you're worried about saying something dumb, that at least means you're worried about looking good.
I'm not worried about. Yeah, I'm not.
It means to me that you're trying.
Okay, fair.
And
yeah,
and this is the thing about DEI work in general, especially from someone in that community. If you're trying and you end up saying something stupid, you misgender, a trans employee on accident, you say the wrong thing, or you accidentally make a remark in very poor taste. Generally speaking, we can tell that you're not meaning it.
Yeah.
As hurtful.
Intent matters.
It can hurt, but overall, we know that you're trying to not do that again.
Sure.
So feel free.
All right.
Feel free to mess up, but no, you still need to improve after that.
Understood. So I guess I wanted to venture into talking about autism, itself, and I think we had done a little bit of a pre kind of conversation, and I think there was some interesting conversation around, and now I don't have the terminology pulled up. Maybe maybe Colin can help prompt me a little bit here, but I'm sure it was you were talking about and you used the term earlier on.
So I
go ahead.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I have the notes set up.
Okay, cool.
So if you've been listening carefully, you'll notice I've been saying autistic as opposed to person with autism or person on the autism spectrum. So what I'm describing is a form of identity first language. So that's me saying that autism is a part of my identity, and I can't actually separate the two. Now, the other forms that you hear, person with autism, person on the autism spectrum, those are person first language. And for a long time, person first was sort of considered the way to describe things, because it's emphasizing that you are a person and not just your identity. which I understand the intention, and to be honest, I grew up using a lot of that language. I still catch myself using person first language on occasion. The thing is, if you say that I'm a person with autism, well, I am a person with this hat in my hand. I am a person with a red flannel shirt on. I can't hold my autism in my hands, right? That's the distinction that I've made. Like I am autistic, but, and this is kind of critical, even though identity first language is generally preferred in this community, there are going to be people who prefer using person first language. So while my recommendation would be to use identity first language, my bigger recommendation is to check with the person you're hiring, which way you would like them to be described as when talking about this stuff.
Sure. When it comes to, sorry, go ahead.
The other kind of term that you may have heard a lot is neurodiversity or neurodivergence. So neurodiversity is this idea that there is no one way that the human brain works. Like there's no one set way that, the neurotypical, i.e. normal brain functions. That's normal with big air quotes there. So a neurodivergent is an umbrella term. Autism is one of those conditions. Yep, Colin commenting there as well. So other neurodivergent conditions would include stuff like ADHD. I've seen Down syndrome listed on that umbrella. I've seen dyslexia and dyspraxia, dysgraphia, all listed as neurodivergence. And if you're wondering, so if there's no one set way of our brain working, then what's the point of using the word neurotypical? Yeah, what is the point of using that term?
I was waiting.
Like my point with that is that this is an ongoing conversation. This is not something that has been settled.
Yeah.
The idea, though, is to emphasize, the idea here is not to use these labels to reduce people, but to let them more accurately describe who they are.
Sure.
And so the other term to use could be allistic, which is
say that again. Sorry.
Allistic. So it's ALLISTIC.
Okay.
So that would be a non-autistic ally, basically.
Okay.
And again, this is a kind of condensed version. There's a lot more nuance that I'm not going into.
Sure.
And I would encourage people to look into this as well on their own, and recognize the position where you're coming from, but also know that this is not an easy conversation, but it's one we're going to be having.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that this stuff's getting more important. I think your neurotypical conversation, your point is really interesting. I think about that a lot, especially when it comes to the brain. Like, how do you know it's typical? How do you know? You never know. How do you know what people are really thinking? Do you ever know what somebody's really thinking? It's impossible. So, identifying what's typical is really basically impossible. I think it's a really interesting, thought. I'm like, I kind of wonder, like, okay, well, how much does not how much does this matter, but from like an employer standpoint, taking the first, I think taking the first step isn't necessarily being an expert in all the nuance and the terminology. It's more just being like, it's kind of just about like, like we said, like taking the first step, doing the right thing, heading in the right direction, and maybe acknowledging like that there is a long story arc here. Like it isn't getting, nobody's going to become an expert or have all the answers like overnight. It's about directionally moving, in kind of in a new path, maybe.
I mean, that's the thing with a lot of disability, equity, and inclusion work. Like, you may feel like this is, you're somehow expected to, learn a textbook worth of theory in an hour. No, that's not. We're not even asking you to learn a textbook worth of theory in a year, really. We're asking you to take those steps and start to look at normality and typicality as these very constructed notions that they are. Like, the idea of something being normal, something being typical, it's normal or typical because a lot of people agree that it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so when something is not that, it's atypical, that means it could mean it's atypical in a good way, but it often seems to mean it's atypical in a bad way. When in reality, most of the time, it's just atypical.
Yeah.
And again, this is not a fixed conversation. This is ongoing. It has been ongoing for many, many years before either of us were born, and it'll be going on long after we're dead.
Yeah.
But the goal is to be inclusive. The goal is to get everyone to be able to work to the best that they can. I actually, it was Dr. Martin Luther King Day on Monday here in the United States, and there was a quote from him from one of the last speeches he gave a year to the day before he was assassinated, where he was saying how we must move away from a thing-oriented society to a people-oriented society. And I view some of what I do at Mindshift as that. I view that as, working in that direction. I don't think I'm going to reach that destination, but I also know I'm going to, try to make it so I can.
Yeah. Cool. I've got a few more questions. I guess I'd like to, if anybody in the audience has any questions specifically for, Reid, or about autism or about Mindshift, now's kind of the time if you want to dump anything in that you would like us to discuss kind of before closing this out. So go ahead and add any questions that I may have missed. If you want to type them into whatever chat platform you're using, that would be helpful. I think I kind of wanted to dig back maybe a little bit into Mindshift and kind of the process and ask just a couple of questions around maybe like the technical pieces.
Sure.
To try to help out folks and organizations that may want to get involved. So it sounds like from a client perspective, if you are a autistic person, a person with autism, depending on who you are, basically contact Mindshift, and Mindshift will kind of take you through the process, the interview process, and kind of introduce you into kind of the pipeline. That's kind of accurate from a client perspective?
From a client perspective, yes. We do need you to we need you as the client to start to contact us most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll do what we can when you start our process.
Here, I'll pop up the website here too, so it's down there.
Yep.
Cool. So the clients come, they contact, so they're kind of initiating the getting in the pipeline for Mindshift to help with the placement. Anything like, what's the you may not be able to answer this, but do you have any information on kind of like what's the time frame? What's it, what does it generally kind of take, or what's the do you have any idea on like what's the process kind of look like from a timing standpoint?
So,
or does it depend?
It can depend because our process of self-training, it can be somewhat longer, but we do try to make our timeline about 30 days on average.
Yeah,
it can take longer, but we do try to get things done within that 30 days.
Great. And are there any, I guess, what are the, are there qualifiers, or like when it comes to a candidate, like how do you like accept or receive a candidate? Like what's that kind of look like?
So, we do need a formal diagnosis.
Okay.
And we work primarily with that formal diagnosis because it's easier for us to work with that because of the medical kind of background that can provide.
Sure.
We work primarily with people who have low to moderate support needs.
Mm-hmm.
There are a bunch of other programs that provide high support services for the people who need it. Our firm is not one of them.
Yeah. Okay. And you're specifically, I know you mentioned at the beginning, there's four cities you're currently.
5 if you count St. Paul as well. But
okay.
So that would be Fargo, North Dakota, where Mindshift actually started, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Denver, Colorado.
How does that, so does that mean that clients need to be in those locations, businesses need to be in those locations, or, with how do you kind of think about, how does that work with those specific cities?
So we have,
especially with kind of remote,
we have remote data jobs across the country for one,
mm-hmm.
Some of them, but some of it does just come to the fact that that's where our partners are located.
Yeah.
Like we're a partner with Boston Scientific within Minnesota. We're partnering with.
Got it. So if a company's in St. Paul, they may want you to come into the office 2 days a week. And in that case, you need a client that's kind of in that location. Yeah. Is that fair?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Mindshift does have plans to expand into other cities across the country but you know, we're still growing, we're still building.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I understand kind of the client side. On the partner side, so I'm assuming it's maybe, I mean, obviously it's a different process, but probably something similar where a partner, is it always a partner that is, coming to, www.mindshift.works and kind of being like, hey, I'm interested in being involved, or are you guys seeking out opportunities and bringing companies in, or kind of how does that process work on kind of the partner side?
Generally speaking, right now, we Mindshift seek out opportunities with companies to form those partnerships.
Gotcha.
Once we have that partnership, then we tend to then they can keep coming back to us, of course.
Sure.
Excuse me, but as we grow our presence, that can change over time. Like as we grow within a community, businesses can start reaching out to us.
Yeah.
Like not that we like allow them to. It's just that it just kind of happens kind of naturally. Word of mouth reaches them, and then
right. So you'll seek out a business, tell them about the program, and then kind of they start getting involved with the program, and that's when you're kind of doing the you talked about doing a walkthrough with the client and the partner, and kind of then providing that matchmaking, getting people warmed up to each other, discovering the work, that type of stuff, right? So I'm assuming there's some kind of like process of finding out about the partner, the partner's needs, looking at kind of the capabilities of the people that you've got in your system, or the clients that you've got in your system, and then kind of providing that kind of matchmaking. Is that about right?
So it takes at least 30 days from the agreement to work with us before we can actually bring someone on board to the partner.
Okay.
The other thing is Mindshift is the employer of record when it comes to this. So we seek out the businesses. We have the pipeline of talent, and we facilitate that meeting. We put those candidates through our hiring process to help overcome the barriers within the traditional process, and then they're technically working for us, and we do that so there's less risk on the partner's part.
Gotcha.
We can't eliminate the risk, but we can do some minimizing.
Yeah. Okay.
Mindshift is also a 501c3 not-for-profit business. We are working to create a sustainable business model outside of grant money. When this company started, we actually were relying on about 80% grant money, 20% private funding. That ratio has flipped by now.
Oh, wow.
Where it's now about 20% grant money, 80% outside funding.
Yeah.
We also have a new business lines where we do have direct hires at the start, and then we provide our services for support after that direct hire.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I guess then the kind of the last, I guess, piece of the the pie. So you've got your partners, you've got your clients. What about the kind of the community involved, or the advocates, or what did you said autism, was that? Did I get that
Holistic.
right? All okay. Like, what about that?
So
Like, is there community involvement here? Is if I'm just interested in, if I'm aligned with the mission, but maybe I'm not hiring, and maybe I'm not a client. Like, is there an avenue for me to help get involved? Maybe donation money, or what? How can the community, the interested community, be involved? Is there a pathway for that?
So we have community partners in every community that we're working on.
Mm-hmm.
But you can, donate to Mindshift, but we're also working to. You can also work to bring us clients or candidates to be, and like for example, like I learned about this like through a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
So like a friend of, like, they were talking about how, yeah, we learned about this Mindshift place, and they eventually, that word eventually got back to my mother, who eventually showed me the website, like, apply for this, see what happens. Here we are.
Yeah, so donation dollars are important, but network is very important too. So that's kind of where the community at large can connect those connect those dots and make it easier for facilitating of employment.
And we're more than happy to have as diverse a base of clients as we can. Like, there seems to be this image that autism looks like me. There is still there's still a lot of white male images of autism. And
I was gonna wonder, I was like, you look like a Silicon Valley tech worker. Like, I'm not sure. I understand what you're saying though.
Yeah, and the reality is, though we know that autism does have a male bias in terms of how many formal diagnoses get made, I also know for a fact that autistic women are hugely underdiagnosed, because a lot of the diagnostic criteria that people look for, it shows most strongly in young boys, because girls are basically taught to mask much better. They're taught to kind of cover that part of them up much more from a younger age.
Gotcha.
And also there's other factors here where if you need the formal diagnosis, well, that means access to health insurance would be a critical component of that. And for many people of color, that can be a huge barrier. But there are also other social barriers where, seeking out that sort of help can be frowned upon and stigmatized.
Mm-hmm.
So when people say that, the diagnosis rates for autism have really gone up in the past, couple of decades, part of that is because of, we're learning more about autism in general. So when we have a broader definition, well, naturally that means,
of course,
the numbers will expand on their own. But it also comes from, more and more people basically learning about it, and then thinking back from when they were young and thinking, maybe I was autistic, in the day, but I didn't know because it just didn't come up.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the number of stories of parents who go to get their children diagnosed and end up starting to think about the diagnosis for themselves.
Yeah.
Like Like that is a very routine sort of occurrence.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. So so I think it sounds like the public, can obviously be the connector. I've got a note. I do have a note from. Sorry, go ahead. I guess I have a note from Joy saying, donations help support the pre-hiring process. So there's no cost to the client to get started in this. So there's no reason to say no. And I think the other thing that's really like, I kind of feel like a company, just hearing you talk about the vetting process. Like I feel like a client or a client should maybe consider going through this to like learn how Mindshift does it, and maybe wants to, take some of those practices and just implement them company wide. It sounds like you guys are spending a lot of time and effort on, thinking about how to really effectively handle that matchmaking process. So I'm sure there's, even if it's just to learn something to to spread company wide, it sounds like, reaching out and getting involved with Mindshift is it makes a lot of sense for organizations. So that's really cool to hear.
I think it does too. Then again, I work here, so
yeah,
I have a bit of an interest.
You're not necessarily a impartial third party. Well, that's the way you got me. I'm the impartial third party. I met, I found out about Mindshift via networking, right? So that's pretty cool. So I think that's about all I've got for today. My hope is that we can continue doing this maybe sometime in the future and learn a little bit more about what y'all are doing, maybe get into some specific examples and talk in some more depth. This has been really interesting and enlightening for me, so I really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you for your time, as well as the time of the audience out there. If you'd have me back, I'd be here.
Cool. Anything anything you kind of want to close out before we leave? I'm going to throw up a comment by Bridget. Bridget, we will share the recording, so we'll get that over, but thank you for the positive comment and feedback.
So I'm going to leave with two things. One, I would recommend if you have the opportunity, I would strongly recommend people watch the movie Crip Camp on Netflix.
How do you spell that?
Crip, CRIP, Camp, CAMP. This is a documentary about a summer camp for disabled children, like back in the 1950s and 60s, that ended up fostering the disability rights movement that eventually really took hold in the 1970s. It eventually resulted in legislation like the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, in 1990.
Yeah.
It's a really great movie on its own right, but it's also a fascinating look at where we were with disability not nearly as long ago as you may think.
Yeah.
And what had to happen and where we can go from here.
Yeah.
It's also great because it shows, these disabled kids at summer camp being kids at summer camp. Like, it's just,
yeah.
And it sounds really innocuous, but you have no idea how big a deal that can be, just to see these kids, playing baseball and
just being kids,
doing dumb stuff because they're dumb kids.
Yeah.
And I think I'm gonna also leave with a phrase that comes up constantly in disability advocacy, which is nothing about us without us. If you're, it's kind of what it says on the tin. If it's gonna impact us, we need to be in the room so we can, let you know why that is a good or bad idea.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I guess we'll leave it at that. And again, appreciate it. Hope you all enjoyed this. If you're watching this after the event, feel free to like, share, do whatever. Let's get the word out. And yeah,
Get
cool.
that engagement up.
There we go.
All
right.
Move it in the algorithm.
All right. Well, thank you, Reid. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Have a good day, everybody.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. I will be back tomorrow with a normally scheduled episode talking about business in general, but sincerely appreciate the help and support of everybody at Mindshift. I'll throw up the URL one last time, www.mindshift.works. If you want to learn more, that's clients, that's partners, that's advocates. They're doing great work out there. Cool. Well, take care.